We saw this week that the housing transport, it's called the Housing Transport, and Public Works Committee of the National Assembly. They have actually approved recommendations by the government. Now this bill, the Landlords and Tenant Bill of 2021 will be going to the floor of the National Assembly. And what the government is trying to do through this bill is to cap the increase in rents based on the inflation of the previous year. So you cannot increase rent more than at a rate higher than the previous year's inflation. Now,
unless you have some
other reasons, aside from the normal ones.
The specified ones are improving your space and all that.
Yeah. Renovations and the likes.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, another component is that this is actually the first time that the government is trying to control the rent space. Okay. Another thing that also came out in the Landlords and Tenant Bill of 2021 is that you as a landlord, you will be allowed to increase the price of tenants, residential tenants, for once a year, only once a year. You can only increase it once a year. But then when it comes to commercial spaces, you'll only be able to increase the price once in 2 years.
I don't know why the government is meddling in
other people's business.
In private matters.
They're trying to cushion the consumers.
The consumer.
To cushion Kenyans. These are hard times.
Where is this even coming from? Like, the real estate market is not doing well. It's not like there have been any considerable price increases.
Yeah.
This past year especially. So I don't know where this is coming from. And
it's very random.
Yeah, it's very random. And you cannot cap the revenue from someone's business. Someone has gone in, put in capital, you've taken a loan to develop your housing units or your residential development, and then you've already done your business case. So when you're doing your projection, you knew that if I raise my my rent prices by this much every so often, it will get me to the return that I'm looking on for this investment. And then the government is coming and tell me, oh, you can't
work with those rates.
Yeah, you can't raise it higher than X amount.
But do you know what, Kalia? If you look at the long-term outlook, going back to probably around 2007 and the prices today, prices have grown more than 3 times.
True, and if prices rise, you hammer.
Prices are rising.
May have done that.
No.
I was in a unit. They gave us a notice that rent is going up. I just hammered.
In as much as you are as you have, there is a financial outlook, sort of responsibility on your investments that it must bring back money, okay? Because that's the whole
my
purpose
development.
Of
yeah, I'm the one
you
who
also have a social responsibility.
No, I do not. To who?
You cannot be increasing rents to people to the extent that they can't bear.
See, if they can't bear, they
business
move out.
Is business,
No. You have to protect consumers, and particularly
you're not obliged to.
We've seen the prices.
You're not obliged to.
We've seen the prices of commercial spaces really skyrocketing. So now you'll only be able to increase the prices of commercial spaces once, twice.
If you have that, if you continue having that reasoning, you'd soon tell us that the government is to punish companies that do not issue dividends in corona times. the market has its own way of punishing companies that do not bear have the consumer in mind. You understand?
Yeah.
So you let the market players do as they wish. If they do something if the producers do something that the consumers do not like, the consumer would have a way of punishing them.
Yeah.
But you know what, Kalia?
As the government, you have no business.
The reason why I'm supporting this is in this country we have to come to terms with the conversation about gentrification. Okay? Gentrification, where you find that
big word.
What is that?
Big word.
Okay. So gentrification is simply, the situation is you go into a place, probably a low income estate, and you start developing or renovating the houses,
Infrastructure there.
the houses there, and then you start increasing and you shoot prices to the extent that these people who are living there cannot afford. So these people have to move there, and then now this place is transformed now into a different place. It becomes a posh place. So where will these people go? Gentrification is a huge thing that we've been seeing in this country.
That's what they're doing in Kibera, I think.
Where is gentrification
They're doing that
happening?
in Kibera.
Absolutely.
But then again, okay, yeah, big word gentrification, but
Come on,
but
Kaya.
yeah, this regulation is not going to stop that, because it's not going to stop gentrification, because gentrification basically is someone coming in, buying out the existing people
Yeah.
and redeveloping them. So I'm going to redevelop it at a cost and still charge it at a higher price to the people compared to what the people around can afford. And then this regulation is only going to limit me to like the charges I've already put in, which are already high. You get? Like, the people are still going to move out because they're not going to afford it.
Nonetheless,
Yeah. Either way.
Yeah. You
So
see,
it's not
talking,
going
I see
to,
your point.
Yeah, it's not going to help with gentrification at all.
talking about that, there's a time I very recently actually went to visit some place in Kiambu.
Yeah.
If you're in touch with the real estate sector in Kenya, you know land prices in Kiambu are crazy, yeah. But then in the midst of all that, of those places, I found some very humble homestead,
Yeah.
and they have like 2 acres of land there. Then I was like, don't these people feel the pressure of selling this piece of land because they'll get a lot of money? That's the kind of money that will change their life.
Uh-huh.
Talking about that, I didn't know it had such a big name, gentrification.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but don't you think, is that what you're trying to say, that soon the developers are going to like start luring these guys to sell them that piece of land, then they'll leave? Did I not get you?
Okay, there are different aspects.
But where is this gentrification happening?
For that particular
Okay,
case,
let me answer Kalia.
Okay.
If you go to Kibra is a slum.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the second largest slum in Africa after Soweto.
Yeah.
At some point it was the largest. What is happening in Kibra, there are a lot of shanties there, as you would tell.
Mm-hmm.
But the NHC is going there, buying pieces of land. Okay, not really buying, repossessing, because they're government land.
Yeah.
And building decent flats there.
Yeah.
And of course, it's government workers who own these pieces of land. These apartments. Then now they rent to people. The people who are renting these, okay, the rental rates are around 30K, 30,000 Kenya shillings. That's the one I had.
And you in Kibera,
No one in
you've been
Kibera can
paying
afford that.
2,000 a month.
Or less.
Yeah.
Or less. Not many people in Kibera can afford that. So people are leaving. If now say you are in plot number X, then plot number X has been repossessed and they've put in, because they'll tell you, they'll put up a structure there, price it at 30K per month. Then they'll be like, we are gengaing a better house here. You can come in after we are done. Of course, it's 30K. You're used to paying 1,500. You cannot afford that. So you go back home to your shags now.
And do you know what? Now there's a certain type of gentrification that rests solely on increments. Okay? So what you do is that, for example, if, as you've mentioned, now what happens is that in that estate, where now people have gone to these high-rise flats, the thing is that people will, the landlords will be continually increasing prices to the extent that if you come to the same place in the next 10 years, you'd find it's a whole other the estate has changed in terms of income. People there, the people who are there,
the cars
people
you see,
of high income, the cars you see there. So the estate has completely changed. It's for rich people now who are there. And remember, nothing has changed at the bottom line. The house is still the same. Everything is still the same. It's just that they've done away with the poor folks.
I want to know where that thing has happened in the past 10 years.
I actually think around Strathmore area, that's Madaraka area. There are apartments
Even South
there.
B,
There are
South
apartments
C.
there.
Yeah, but they have been always like
I happen to have been there in like
South,
20.
even Kino right now, getting a bed sitter in Kino or a one bedroom in Kino, prices have gone high.
Market forces of demand and supply. It's nothing to do with
that's actually what I would attribute it to, because you see those houses that I'm talking about near Strathmore, before Strathmore did not have accommodation, student accommodation.
So you're talking about the MFs. Is it the MFs and then there's the developments by NHC?
Those ones came a bit recently afterwards.
Yeah.
In 2017, that's where I was there. That's when I was there like for a considerable amount of time.
Yeah.
I used to live like in one of those apartments. The rent was like how much? 40 to 50?
Yeah.
Nowadays the place, because of the NHC developments and all that, which again is market forces, not just the landlord did not just decide that, you know what, now the rent is going to be 80k. It is because of those developments that came with NHC and all those other developers coming into that area. Because they come and before you know it, there's Cabro where there was Maram.
Yeah.
All those, they come with conveniences. So you're more into town. Getting to town is more accessible and all that. So for that reason, the market, the rent increases. But you see, it's not just because that we decided, the landlord did not just wake up and said that, you know what, I don't want these poor people here. Let me increase the price. So they chuck and richer people come in.
Yeah.
It's because of the market and demand factors, supply and demand factors.
Yeah, because for me, it's literally, market and demand, let that happen. Because we've seen if prices are too high, people won't pay. And as a landlord, you're going to struggle. Eventually, you're going to have to correct. So the reason not land prices, house and rental prices have risen is because we've had a housing shortage in Nairobi. So again, going back to demand and supply.
Yeah. But then you know what, Kalia? Let me just interrupt you. You know, you've said demand for houses, and this is part of the problem. This is part of the reason why we are currently in this real estate quagmire, okay? Because many people mistook demand for the general want.
People mistook want for ability to purchase.
Absolutely. Where people saw that there's a gap, okay? People really, if you ask people in Nairobi, they want decent houses, they want decent, affordable houses. So people saw that, this is showing them there's demand.
Yes.
But they didn't differentiate that using now the ability metric.
People, those like most developers, so okay, there's a demand for housing, but then the
demand and deficit,
the market that most developers built the houses for, and these are the houses that usually have like good margins, you'd get good returns. These are houses that would target the middle income and above, which the demand is not that big there. The bigger demand is on the lower income space.
And the top kabisa.
The top. And the top. But that's a very small component for them. They can do it on their own. They don't have to rely on developers. So what most developers did was they actually ended up developing on bringing in a lot of housing supply to the market that was not for the right market segment that was in that high demand. So the lower end is where the demand was, and which is why now there's a lot of focus on affordable housing, because that's the space that actually needs
where the demand is.
Where the demand is. But generally I feel like, because as a developer, it's not like this government is building houses for people. They've tried, they've not. They were saying 500,000
units.
How
much was it per year?
I
2,000. Think there's someone who did the math. Then it was that they were supposed to do X numbers in their term. Then now in a year it should be again X. So now in a day it was coming to, I don't know, is it 2,000? And so that was translating to, I don't know, 50 houses per hour.
Because
just to show how much they were not.
Because they're saying 500,000 units. That was the goal. So if you have to divide by 5, that's.
But it can actually be done. It's just that, when these plans come from the Ministry of from the State Department of Housing, it's just not being followed up with finances from Treasury. That's the weakest link.
It's not followed up by finances by Treasury because there are no finances.
But those are factors you need to consider when you're making those plans.
But at the end of the day, most of these developments are actually done by private developers who have put up their own capital. They've put up the they've taken up the development risk, and then they're also taking up the market risk in the sense that they are hoping that this unit is going to get tenants and they're going to get their money back, and then you're going to come and tell them, okay, you're not supposed to raise rent by X amount.
Yeah.
It does not. The government itself, if you're going to put up your own houses, then go put that.
And then use
that
those
clause
rates
in your own
there.
houses.
Okay.